Jim Rice. Thank you so much for coming. I'm Kristen Miller, and thank you for coming to Candidate Conversations, brought to you by Fort Bend Voters League. As you may know, we're a nonpartisan organization dedicated to voter engagement. In fact, our motto is bringing civility to public discourse. And thank you so much for joining us, for giving us your time today, so our voters can get to know you more and to understand your points of view. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
So just to clarify, you're Jim Rice, and you're running for Fort Bend ISD Position 3.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And so Jim, can you tell us what's your biggest motivator for wanting to serve Fort Bend ISD, and what uniquely qualifies you for that position?
My wife and I moved here in 1981 and raised our 3 children here. When we moved here, we didn't have children. They were all educated at Fort Bend elementary, middle, and high schools. They were not at the top of their class, but they learned how to learn, and that enabled them to graduate from high school, go on to college, and graduate from college. I think what motivates me is the desire to ensure that all of the children in Fort Bend ISD receive a quality education, and that they graduate, either go to college or trade school or the military, and then are able to get a job that pays a living wage that will enable them to get married, buy a house, and raise a family. Because if everyone can do that, no one has time to get into trouble. And then they can return to our society, to our community, and be contributing members of our society. What makes me uniquely qualified, I would say, is simply the fact that I've served almost 9 years on the school board. I've been through a lot of changes in Fort Bend ISD and a lot of challenges. And so I've learned a lot about governance and how to work with my fellow trustees and the superintendent, as we call it, the team of 8.
Okay.
Anyway, that's why.
Okay.
That's what qualifies me.
That's wonderful. So you had a positive experience with your children going through Fort Bend ISD, and
Yes.
okay,
Yes,
good.
I did.
Good. That's wonderful. And so what do you see are the 3 biggest challenges for the districts, and what would those solutions to those challenges be that you see would make it successful?
Well, our biggest challenge is finding a way to reach out and serve all of our children.
Mm-hmm.
We have average kids, we have gifted and talented children, we have special needs children, we have limited English proficiency children, and economically disadvantaged children. And our goal is to provide a program that serves all of those student groups equally as well, and helps them arrive at their full potential, develop their full potential in order to be successful in life. That's not easy to do. We have a very diverse community, as you may know, and meeting the needs of all of those children is a challenge. Our community is dynamic, and by extension that means Fort Bend ISD is dynamic. It's ever-changing, and we can't rest on our laurels, because what worked last year may not work next year. We've got to continue to adapt and change. So that is our #1 challenge, meeting the needs of our children, ensuring they have a quality education. Second to that is safety and security.
Oh, yeah.
We want our children
That's
to be able to learn in a supportive environment that's a safe and secure environment. And how do we do that? Well, I have a few thoughts on that I'll share later, but that is a challenge as well. And the third thing is money. All these programs take money. And although people always tell me, well, it's not about money, it is about money, because we can't offer the programs that we do without having enough money. And having that money being funded by the state, we're not-for-profit, and so we have to remain engaged with our state legislators, which we are right now, because they're voting on a new finance bill that will have some winners and losers.
As far as school safety, I would actually really like to hear some of your ideas now. I mean, you don't have to go into big detail, but I would be really curious as to kind of see your priorities as far as school safety, and what is the most effective, and where you'd like to see this district go.
What I would like to see with school safety, I think that starts with our school counselors. And over the years, when we've had budget cuts, we've pressed counselors into proctoring roles and things like that, almost everything except counseling. We have changed that, but that takes money. rather than have metal detectors. I know that sounds good to some people, but it goes well beyond that. We need to have counselors who are talking to our kids, and enough counselors so we can recognize children who are suffering and have intervention early on before anything happens. That's number one. Number two, the way that we design schools has got to change. Colony Bend Elementary School, I'll use that as an example, is where my children went. The receptionist desk is in the middle of the school. And so anyone can just walk into, and they're halfway in the middle of the school before they even get to the receptionist desk. So we're changing that by creating security vestibules where they have to pass through the vestibule and then to the receptionist before they enter the school. And having some cameras outside to identify suspicious or strange-looking, threatening characters that might be coming up the sidewalk, and having a way to shelter in place and so that the teachers can lock their classroom doors from the inside, not the outside. And beyond that, it's an evolving thing. There are many different opinions on that.
Yeah.
Some people want us to arm the teachers. I think we need fewer guns in school, not more. And that begins with having good counselors at each school.
Yeah, I agree. I think getting in touch with the students and supporting them is probably one of the best plans. I appreciate you coming out with those ideas today. What involvement have you had, like say in the community or directly with the district, that puts you in touch with today's students, parents, and teachers so you can better know their needs?
Well, I've spent a lot of time visiting campuses all over. I've been to student programs and PTO and PTA programs. The board instituted a few years ago a listening tour where we actually move our board meetings out of the boardroom and into various campuses across the district. It's really involved to do that, but we go to those pains in order to put ourselves in the campus, visiting with the teachers, visiting with the students, and visiting with the parents, and letting them see how we're discussing action items and agenda items so they get a better feel for what our role is. That's one thing. Another thing that I try to do is through the Chamber of Commerce, bring programs here to our community that shore up support for public education and higher education by bringing different speakers here. We've had the Commissioner of Education, Mike Morath. We've had the State Board of Education Chair, Donna Mahorich. We've had folks who specialize in testing, talking about the STAR exam and so forth. And we've had people here talking about school funding and everything in between.
Yeah. Now, I know at Fort Bend, ISD is exploding. You talked about the growth that it's had and how it is continuing to evolve as a district. And then the testing gaps that you guys are having, the achievement gap, how do you feel is the best way to address it so every student has the same opportunities to succeed regardless of location within the district?
Well, it boils down to effective teaching and campus leadership. So it boils down to recruiting teachers and enough teachers to serve our children in schools which have been underperforming. And these are children that sometimes don't have all the parental support that other kids do. So we can't let that be an excuse for poor student outcomes. So recruiting highly qualified teachers, investing in their development, recruiting highly qualified principals and getting them to stay at these campuses, and investing in their leadership development and supporting them over an extended period of time is how we do that. I think one of the things that we have to do is leverage the knowledge of our teachers, because some teachers are skilled in different subject matters, and finding ways to use testing that is diagnostic and not punitive to learn where students are suffering, and then bring in a teacher with skills in that area for enrichment. And that might even lead to things like Saturday school, where the kids come in on the Saturday for half a day to be taught and have enrichment in those subjects that they're falling behind in. and overall an emphasis on reading, because there's a direct correlation. If students are not reading on grade level by the 3rd grade, there's a direct correlation to them dropping out of high school. So that is so important. In this upcoming House Bill 3, which the House Public Ed Committee there is money in there for a full day of pre-K. Now that's not something that if we suddenly had a magic bullet and all the money that we needed for a full day of pre-K, we still don't have enough physical capacity, classroom capacity to accommodate that. But it's a start. And I've heard the Greater Houston Partnership lecture on the need for a full day of high quality pre-K for many, many years. And I think that's what's needed, especially in such a diverse community as ours.
Yeah, intervention at a young age and be able to have the most effective start has the biggest payout in the end. And so nice to see you address that. I know that in Fort Bend County that you spoke that it was very diverse. And so this, speaking more than 90 languages and dialects, what can you do to ensure that Fort Bend County serves its diverse student body and covers diversity?
Well, we need to make sure we have teachers who at least speak some of these languages to help the students while they're learning English. That's our English language learner
Support our
program.
ESL program.
Yeah, that is key. And again, all of that takes money. So the school board sets these overarching goals for the superintendent to achieve, and then we have to have key performance indicators that we use at the superintendent's formative evaluation and their summative evaluation to make sure we're achieving those goals. It's up to the superintendent and his staff to come up with a plan to carry out the goal. We're on the side of governance, but we do have to hold the superintendent accountable for achieving those goals. Nobody's got a magic wand or a silver bullet, and Rome wasn't built in a day. So these things you have to have a commitment to see it through. It's going to take several years to make sure a program is effective, but we have to monitor it carefully during those years to make sure that we're getting the gains that we need after applying the resources to it.
I really appreciate your time, and I appreciate you coming out and letting us know what your platforms are and what your ideas are. I think it's almost better to have an informed voter, and that's what makes it so wonderful. Thank you so much for taking time with us today.
Thank you for your time.
And remember that early voting is from April 22nd to April 30th, with Election Day Saturday, May 4th. We'll see you at the polls.